this is a really interesting deck because you got to kind of play the two dynamics where you're trying to do board control with your spells to be able to remove the dangerous things. At the same time, you're still trying to take the battlefield so that you can actually score points. And in prior deck builds, there was an issue where a lot of the times you were kind of going towards the I'm just going to totally decimate you with the game, with my spells and everything, but I don't necessarily have a whole lot to actually populate the battlefield with. Well, luckily that all actually ended up changing with Moyen's build here, and he went 7-0 with this deck. Really great build right here. And the biggest thing he said on this build is to not underestimate your 2 and 3 costs. And that was probably the biggest thing that was making this deck fall short, because yes, when it all came said and done, you cleared out your opponent's threats on board, but then you didn't have any units out yourself, and so you found yourself in a very difficult circumstance. So you got to kind of figure out that dynamic. So just so you guys know before we go into the deck list, what Kaisa actually does, pretty good. You can go ahead and add, basically a power. Power is the recycle symbol, and you can use this to only play spells. Now, keep in mind that this is locked into Fury and Mind in this case, so good to know there. And then, of course, it is just a solid 6-6 split, nice and easy right there as well. With that being said, too, the curve is actually pretty decent. Lots of 2 costs. I mean, you're seeing, 12 at that point, and then everything else is, 7 or so, 6 or 7 in that case. And it goes down pretty swiftly after that. That's going to be the biggest thing, too. You're not necessarily looking to play those big units until the end of the game. You're more so going to just try to balance out how much you actually need to recycle so that you can keep getting ahead in rune count, get some battlefield points, and then when you hit the late game, you can just run, and you can take this game with ease. Now, the biggest thing that's going to help you do that is going to be Targon's Peak. When you conquer here, you ready 2 runes at the end of your turn. Awesome. Then with that also, Reckoner's Arena, when you hold here, activate the Conquering Effect unit here. Now that's going to be mainly for Kaisa down here. When I conquer, draw 1, so that's going to cause you to draw 2 cards at the start of your turn instead, which again is going to be very helpful, because the biggest part where this deck kind of falls short is going to be with the card draw. If you're not able to replenish your hand enough, then you're going to be finding yourself in a difficult situation when it comes towards the mid to late game, because you need to keep that constant card draw. Then Void Gate is really helpful as well. Spells and abilities that affect units here each deal 1 bonus damage. So if you happen to go ahead and have Hextech Ray, then instead of dealing 4 or 3, it will deal 4. So really helpful there. And just really great cards in general. So again, the biggest thing that you're going to see a lot of these spells kind of focusing on is that you'll be able to do either a lot of damage or you'll be able to draw a card. So first and foremost, of course, Kaisa is going to be really good because you can accelerate her. Now, of course, you do need to pay 1 and recycle, a Fury in that case to be able to play her accelerated. But once you do, you can go ahead and pretty much you'll accelerate her when you actually can take the battlefield right off the bat. That way you can automatically replace her with the card draw, which can be very helpful there. Then Stupefy, of course, minusing 1 might to a minimum of 1. And it immediately replaces itself as well. Really good. Cleave is going to be one of the biggest things to help get you going, get you over those big hurdles that might be causing you to struggle in your certain matchups, because you can get Assault +3 this turn. Now, that is only, of course, when attacking is when Assault actually takes place. And you get +3 might when you are an attacker. So, good things to know there. And then Hextech Ray, really awesome card. In that mix as well, because you're going to be able to go ahead and deal 3 damage to a unit at a battlefield. Now, you only replenish health after a battle has occurred at the battlefield in this case. And so if you happen to deal 3 damage to a unit that's at 6, then you go ahead and throw Kaisa in. That might end up being a trade, of course, because the mites, might be equal to or greater than for Kaisa, greater than 4 in that case. And if that is the case, then it is going to be a trade, but that can be a great way to go ahead and get in some damage. One retreat is really interesting. Now, of course, you are going to be citing 2 others, which is really fun. And you get to return a friendly unit to its owner's hand, and its owner channels 1 rune exhausted. So, really helpful there. Kind of, there's a bit of a penalty that it can feel like at first, where you have to pull back your unit to your hand. that kind of sucks. At the same time, though, if it is something like Thousand-Tailed Watcher in that case, you're not wanting to necessarily lose that. And then if you're able to also get it back in the hand, because when it comes into play, you -3 might from all units. And that, I mean, all units in battlefields. Oh yeah, -3, give enemy units -3 just in general till the end of the turn, which can be just so good. And a lot of threats that you can watch out for with that as well. Then, of course, Ravenbloom Student is going to be one of the better cards in this deck as well. Again, it is only a 2 cost, no recycle in this case, which can be very helpful with Kaisa. And then when you play a spell, give me +1 this turn. And that, of course, can stack, which is one of the biggest things with this deck that you're going to be finding that you love with it. Especially on opponents' turns. A lot of times when opponents are attacking into your battlefield, it is going to be very close on the mites. And so if you go ahead and play a spell, you might be able to, 1, also take out a unit, but 2, when you do play a spell, awesome. Ravenbloom Student then gets buffed at that point for each spell that you play. Just really good. Now, Legion Rearguard, really good as well because he can come in accelerated, very good on the early game. It might just end up being that they just come right in and take it out on the very next turn. But the nicest part is that you're kind of just looking to get as many points early game so that your late game can be that much more easier because you don't want to get your opponent too far ahead of you. Otherwise, when you finally are able to dominate in the late game, you're just going to be finding yourself having an uphill battle. Now, Smokescreen is going to be one of the best cards in this deck. -4 might to a minimum of 1. And again, that's a 2 with 1 power in this case. Really good, to be able to get that done. A lot of really great power there in the case. And it's a reaction. It's going to just be coming straight from your hand. It's not a hidden card or anything like that. So it can really catch your opponent off guard. And, a lot of times they might be anticipating it might be a Void Seeker dealing 4 or Falling Star, whatever it might be. But then you go ahead and play like a Smokescreen and there's not necessarily a whole lot that they can do about it. Just a really good card, playing 2 of that. Watchful Sentry, when it dies, you draw 1, which is really good. Again, just an easy early game thing to maybe try to take the other battlefield, and then you replace itself when it, of course, disappears. Same with Lecturing Yordle. When you play me, draw 1. And it's a tank. Yes, that's a tank too, but if you go ahead in with like Kaisa and him going against like a Snapvine that has 6 might, then cool, he'll take 4 of that damage. Well, Kaisa would still die. That's a bad example. But imagine if it was like a Darius you were going against, then of course the Kaisa would survive and the Yordle will die. So nice. Now again, Void Seeker is a really good card. Again, 3 energy, 1 power in this case, and you deal 4 to a unit at a battlefield and draw a card. Really good right there. Replaces itself. And again, that's going to be the biggest thing that you need to find with this deck is I need card draw, and I need to not really recycle a whole lot until the mid to late game. So Sprite Mother is probably one of the better cards in this deck as well. I mean, biggest thing too is that you can go ahead and spawn it into your base. Awesome. But then when you go ahead and do so, you can play a ready 3 might Sprite unit token with temporary. So it'll die before you're able to score at your upkeep. But at the same time, that's still a really great ability because you could still try to take a battlefield with it. And with 3 might, that can be a pretty big game changer. And for 4 as well, really good. Now, Darius, the big combo with that, of course, is going to be anytime you play the second card for the turn. Awesome. He's able to come in ready with +2. 7 coming in like that can swing for a lot. No, there is no tournament today. There is, oh, hey, Stridewalker, I've seen you around. No, there's no tournament today. What is specifically happening is just looking at Moyen's past video here when I was casting his league or his match in the tournament. But I do have a league going. I don't know if you heard about the league that I'm running. I think we have about 35, 40 people in it right now. Where you do get a challenge, or you do get your matchup once a week in a best of 3 match. You coordinate with your opponent, and then after that, you can also do a challenge match as well. And those are kind of 2 avenues to go down. Now, Riftbound Meta, I know, is doing a tournament, I think, on Saturday. And then, who else? Riftlab is starting their challenge league, essentially, where you play a tournament on Saturday or Friday and you get put into pods. And as you place in those pods, you get points that can count for you to qualify for the end of season tournament. So go ahead and check out Rift Labs on Twitter. They have more information there as well. So kind of two avenues. But yeah, no tournament, unfortunately. Or that I know of, that I'm a part of. But good to have you. But yeah, Riptide Rex is going to be probably one of the bigger surprises here as well. Something that I really love about him, of course, is that when you go ahead and play him, you deal 6 to an enemy unit at a battlefield. That can be a big difference maker. Now, that's a big difference between the Snapvine here, because the Snapvine, yes, it costs 5, but it has to attack something, and that gives you the chance to go ahead and buff it, and then potentially you lose out on, your unit in this case, instead of just dealing 6 damage. They might have a chance to save it, might not, but I mean, Riptide Rex is just a really solid card. It does kind of suck sometimes to have to recycle 2 with that power, but hey, if it can go ahead and change the tide of the game, especially if you can go ahead and target that on Master Yi's battlefield in that case, there's not necessarily a whole lot that they can do. And the biggest part, too, about going against an Ari deck or a Master Yi deck is that they do have, even Lee Sin, but he's kind of lower meta, is that they're going to have the ability to play, counters in that case. Well, Riptide Rex, he's a unit. So his doesn't even count as a spell, and those counters can only counter spell cards. And so he can just be a really good way to go ahead and get into this game. Now, let me this real quick. Whew. Now, this can be the momentum shift to make sure that you secure your win, essentially. Thousand Tailed Watcher, just a really great card, especially minusing 3 from every enemy unit to a minimum of 1 until the end of turn. You can accelerate this, which will allow you to then go ahead and take over battlefields. It's kind of like a grand stratagem that Victor and Darius use, but in this case, it's just an actual unit, and you do just so much with that. Really good card. And if you already have a couple of units in your base, you can take both battlefields, and if you're at 6 points, you slap this card down, you swing in, and you're sitting pretty. I mean, just a really good job there with this deck. Love how this can just help you swing in. And it's so funny, too, because when Thousand Tailed Watcher first came and was revealed to the Discord and everything, it was really interesting, mainly due to the fact that people didn't necessarily think that this was a very viable card in a meta. But we've been quickly seeing and learning just how viable of a card it is and how much it can swing to your benefit. And so there's a lot there that can just help you out with taking this to the next level and getting there. Now, your side deck is going to be very important on trying to get things going. Now, again, your third Legion Rearguard, if you just need that little extra aggression, if you're going against a Victor, Darius, or things like that. Retreat, if you do need to save certain things a little bit more often, you're more than able to. Nox is hopeful. It's just a good, having a 4 might in this case that can cost 2 as well can be really good, again, just to help flood the board. Third one, just in case you need a little bit more consistency. And then Ecathian Rain, being able to do this 6 times and dealing 2 to a unit. The only time that that's really going to suck for you is if you're going against a Volibear deck and you're trying to target Volibear, because anytime that you target him, you do have to recycle 2. You're not going to be able to take him out with Ecathian Rain in that case, but naturally you probably wouldn't want to in that case, and you wouldn't run it anyway. But otherwise, I mean, there is a lot of things that you can do with that, and Kaisa can at least mitigate the recycle the power cost by 1, so you only have to actually recycle 2 in that case instead of 3. Very helpful in that case, and great to be able to see that. So, I mean, just a really good deck, and just like we said, we had this deck be able to go 7-0, and the only reason Moyen didn't go into the top 8 cut was because it was a very late tournament. He's across the ocean, actually, in Europe, UK area. I'm not sure exactly where. But because of that, it was like 2 a.m. when we finally made it to the top cut for those in the UK. So we did have a couple of drops in that case, unfortunately. Rift Labs are also looking into changing or fixing a lot of that. They're listening to the community. Really awesome. what Jacob is doing there with that. Keep that up. So again, this is going to be Moyen's gameplay of the match that I casted during the tournament, and this is going to be Master Yi versus Kaisa in this case. Now, Master Yi has kind of had a big uptick in popularity here as well lately. We've seen him have a lot of success over in China and those opening tournaments, which has been really interesting to be able to see. And not only that, but it's been really funny because in the meta of everything, you've seen in the beginning that you've seen the Set kind of rise up through the ranks, then you've seen kind of Kaisa rise up through the ranks, and now you've seen Master Yi be kind of like the biggest deck played in this case. So right here, though, you see both of these people that are rotating through their mulligans right now, and you see that Moyen in particular, he has a Legion Rearguard, a Stupefy, but it looks like he might be either playing or mulliganing his Legion Rearguard. And again, if you're going second, it doesn't actually hurt to go ahead and play a Lecturing Yordle to be able to even get a +1 card draw in this case as well. And so that's the biggest thing too. Kaisa actually should have a pretty easy matchup in this case because you're able to go ahead and attack Master Yi's Master Yi's units at battlefield without necessarily needing to worry about how things are going to go. But that's also kind of the tricky part because if Master Yi has the ability to play the cards in his hand to go ahead and add might to his units, then you can kind of screw yourself over a little bit too. But you see right here that Master Yi in this case doesn't have a turn 1 play, which can really hurt him. Now, with that, he's at least going to be able to play a 3 Might Cub, which is going to be pretty solid here in this case. So that'll at least be able to shut down the Yordle when it goes ahead and takes over the battlefield. Likewise, though, you might be able to even try to get something in with Might. And yeah, so this is Jan Moy. He switched over from Lorcana to try to play in a Riftbound tournament as well and ended up going 7-0 with this deck list. And this was the match that I casted on Saturday. So, and then the guy who is playing Nightingale, I think he ended up getting 4th in the tournament once he made it to top 8 cut. So really awesome to be able to see this. Now, of course, we see in this case that he's going to go ahead and make it into the battlefield and be able to score a point off of that. Then he is going to be playing another 2 cost in this case. Excuse me. And so the biggest thing about that is it's just going to really help. And then, you kind of always want to leave a little bit open because especially early on in the game, it's very easy for Kaisa to try to get points. That's why you're playing a lot of 2 cost, 3 cost units in this case, because you're trying to go ahead is just, build up your battlefield in this case. And again, Moyen is just an absolute boss when it comes to Lorcana. And so the fact that he was able to also go 7-0 in this game just is able to understand this game at a completely different level. Now, he is going to play with 2 units and have a Ravenbloom student in this case, so anything that is played. Now, he does have a 1 cost. He can use the Kaisa to go ahead and pay for the recycle cost of the card because that is her ability, and then he will go ahead and deal 3 damage to it. Now, Master Yi is going to have the ability to go ahead and then just counter it in general, and then that is going to be an automatic trade, and that's something that you got to kind of watch out for. But at the same time, with this being kind of earlier in the game, not necessarily the worst situation. You're kind of happy to get rid of that stuff early on. Now, one of the biggest threats of Master Yi that you have to be careful of is you have to watch out for Carnivorous Snapvine, which when it comes in, you choose another unit at a battlefield, they deal damage to each other, and go from there. And so you got to be a little bit careful about that because that is a very easy way to lose a lot of units. So already we see that Moyen is going ahead and being at 7. Again, this guy just understands card games like nothing else as well. Really great guy to study gameplay, which is why we're pulling this up as well. There were 2 other Kaisa decks that we saw in the tournament. Didn't necessarily perform as well. Still very skilled players, but Moyen just understood this deck at a whole different level in this case. Plays One Piece, plays Lorcana, plays everything. It's kind of crazy. So there we go with the Sharknado in this case. Now, of course, that's going to be dealing 6 damage to a unit at a battlefield. Not really a point in trying to ramp them up in that case. And so now both battlefields are his for the taking. And again, this is kind of the power that you can see with this Kaisa deck. Just the ability to go ahead and make sure that you have units out on the field. And now in the base, he now has a 6 might unit. Master Yi could very well go ahead and play, his Master Yi. Nightingale can go ahead and play that. But it looks like Snapvine is going to be coming out to go ahead and deal 6 to a unit. Now, of course, that's going to be really all that he can do for the turn. And so that's going to be a quick pass and another scored point for holding the battlefield by Moyen in this case. And so he's got to be a little bit careful on how he's going to be going about this, because Carnivorous Snapvine can be a little bit tricky on trying to get things moving. And so you got to watch out for this. But again, 6 to 6, and there's also going to be ways that Master Yi can go ahead and buff his units, add more might to his units. And that's the interesting part as well. There is no stuff like that in this game. And so he just accelerated his Kaisa in this case. Now that's going to be an automatic capture going up to 5, being able to draw a card because Kaisa was able to conquer. And he can go ahead and at the end of the turn, if I remember correctly, no, that's the one that it deals 2 more damage at the end of the turn. And so just really good stuff right there. I mean, and still, again, he's filling up his base so that he can go ahead and continue to push in. Now, kind of clever that he is keeping the 6 back. If they go ahead and take both, he could very well go for the Master Yi play here. But it looks like it might be another Snapvine. Yep, another Snapvine coming out to take out the Kaisa. Then one can move in. That's only going to be his second point. He's down by 3 as the Master Yi player in this case. And so it looks like he's then going to go ahead and move. Oh, with a charm. That's mean. Okay, so with the charm, then what that's going to actually mean is that you can go ahead and grab a unit essentially and move them into the base. This is really strong with Master Yi in this case, because what that actually does is activate Master Yi's ability, which adds +2 to their might when they are defending alone. That's a big key factor here. And so that's going to take out the shark just like that with nothing lost in this case. Now, at the same time, that was a lot of runes that were expended there. You only have now 4 runes left as a Master Yi player. Of course, next turn you're going to be going up to 6, but still, that can really slow you down, especially when your opponent now has 9 runes to go ahead and utilize. And of course, if they end up having the Thousand-Tailed Watcher, which they very well could, then in that case, you're going to have to worry about just overrunning things because, well, it can come in accelerated -3 to everything and take the battlefield with ease. So, I mean, that's going to be a big difference maker. And so, might not have that in hand, though. So, that's going to be something to kind of see in this case. And so, I'm curious. But, I mean, with 9 runes in his hand, or 9 runes at his disposal, that is a lot. But yeah, it looks like it is going to be the Thousand Tail. You are going to have to recycle in that case. That is a lot to be able to recycle because 1 to accelerate, 1 to actually in his power cost as well. Let's see. And the rune count might actually be off. I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And so, but even still, being able to then go ahead and take both in this case is going to be a really big deal for Moyen. And this could very well take, cause him to win this game. He's not going to have enough to get Master Yi out to have a readied character to be able to take these battlefields. And he needs to take both because if one ends up staying, then in that case, there's not going to necessarily be anything else that they can end up doing to get this done. And so, kind of a difficult situation for the Master Yi player here. And yeah, the White Flame Protector is going to be a really good option here, but again, it's not going to necessarily be a ready card, nor does he have the runes ready to be able to get things going here. But even still, the rune count is off, and so... But yeah, it looks like drawing another Primal Strength won't necessarily solve anything, and so that's going to be a scoop in that case, and they're going to be going into game 2. So yeah, here we go again. Now, both these players at this point, Nightingale and Moyen, are still 4-0 in their Swiss round tournament. They're playing in the 5th round currently, and they're doing their mulligan. Now, again, you are looking at trying to go ahead and get things moving along as fast as you can. And yeah, the cleave is a good thing to have. And keep in mind, with this game, there's only necessarily 2 cards that you can mulligan at the start of your turn. You draw 4 cards, you can put up to 2 back, and then you draw a 5th card at the start of your turn. Both players do. A really interesting kind of conundrum there. Now, also, Lifeline Protector being in your starting hand really kind of slow you down. You don't necessarily want that, but still, at the same time, really tough hand. But still, now they both have units out in this case and are able to start moving in. Now, the one thing that I do like about this unit and Master Yi's side is that you can recycle an additional rune to go ahead and draw another card, which can make a pretty big difference. Now, with Kiana as well, the biggest thing with her is that when you go ahead and conquer, you'll be able to go ahead and draw a card or channel a rune exhausted. At the same time, though, with this Master Yi player, he's trying to hit the ground running a little bit faster this go around and get things moving. That's going to be the hardest part, though, is that now with everything that he's recycled, because you have to recycle a rune to be able to put a card down hidden in a battlefield. And so doing so is pretty tough in that case. And so, you're down to 2 at that point, whereas your opponent is now up to 3. So it looks like he is just going to go ahead and play a Kaisa into the battlefield just as a little bit more security. The Snapvine is not going to be coming out this next turn because you're only going to be at 4 instead of 5. And so that's going to stop the Kiana from being able to go over at least as easily. There could still be multiple buffs in hand to be able to try to go ahead and attack in a little bit stronger in this case. And so with that, you are going to go ahead and buff up the Kiana with the Pit Rookie in this case. Really helpful card right there. And then keeping in mind as well the battlefields here. The Reckoner's Arena is while you hold here, activate the conquering effects here. So yes, you might have not had to play the Kaisa out right away, but then going ahead and playing the Kaisa there, if you hold it on the upkeep, you're going to be able to activate Kaisa's Conquer effect, which will allow you to go ahead and draw an additional card at the start of your turn, which is going to be super solid. Again, the biggest thing that can beat Kaisa is if she is unable to maintain card draw. If you don't have, units on the field or spells to take out the threats on the field, you're just in trouble in that case. And so a lot of things to kind of keep in mind as you go around this. And you did manage to stay back the Kiana from taking over the battlefield, and so that's very reassuring to be able to see as well. And so hidden cards are a very interesting idea as well because it has a regular cost. For example, there's one that's a blue card where you get to draw 2. Normally costs 4, but if you play it as a hidden card, then it only costs 1 recycle, which is still, could be a little bit of cost, but not nearly as much as 4. And again, card draw, like in any card game, is king. The more cards that you have, the better off that you can be in that case. And so a lot of fun that you can have right there. And so still, though, the Master Yi, while doing decent here at least, he's still a little bit low on cards in hand, and so something that you got to be a little bit mindful of. And at the same time, Moyen's doing a really good job building up his battlefield to the best of his ability, or building up his base to the best of his ability, and then is able to go ahead and take over some battlefields. And I mean, that is absolutely crazy in that case. Having 3 Raven Blooms going in. Now, Raven Bloom, like we said, is going to be one of the better cards because if you go ahead and attack in and you play a single spell, all of your Raven Bloom students go ahead and get +1 in that case. And so giving up these battlefields, you're not necessarily going to be hurting yourself in the long run. It is 2-4 right now, especially with the second battlefield being conquered. And it looks like that Nightingale chose to draw an extra card to hand in that case. And so a lot of really interesting things to be able to keep in mind. But at the same time, Moyen's base is looking really good, and it just will take a spell or 2 to really make a big difference. Also, being at 9 runes is really scary to try to anticipate as well. You do got to keep in mind that Master Yi has the ability to go ahead and get Master Yi out onto the battlefield, and it does come in ready. But even still, I mean, you could easily tie up this game, and then you have the ability to even hold down the fort as needed with whatever they might necessarily throw at you. Because Master Yi's biggest thing is that he thrives with being able to defend, but being on the attack is another story. It can be very difficult for them to go ahead and move in this case. And so With the buff that is on the Kiana here, that's going to be at 5 might, which is going to be a little bit difficult to maybe try to conquer in this case. And whatever you try to conquer with in this case, the damage that is done to the units, I mean, you could, if you attack with 3 Ravenbloom students, you're going to be losing 1 if you don't, or 2 potentially if you don't have a spell to go ahead and deal some damage in this case. Also, really high chance that there's a counter here with Master Yi. And so it's just a really difficult dynamic to try to get things going. But still, you're going to go ahead and play this card. Now, um, the reason why Void Seeker is an okay card in this case is mainly due to the fact that it can be countered. Now, the one that cannot be countered is going to be Falling Star, which is what was played. Falling Star cannot be countered because you have to recycle 2. It has a power of 2, and the counter in Master Yi's deck only has the ability to recycle 1. And so right there you see that Ravenbloom student gets buffed up just like that. Really great response there. And then you can go ahead and potentially take both battlefields in this case. And so another spell coming in Stupefy to -1, and now you have 12 just from the Ravenbloom students alone, and you still have so much left in your arsenal at that point. And then here comes the Sprite Mother to go ahead and add a readied Sprite in for free as well. So this is a really great look right now for Moyen's battlefield or face and battlefield at this point. He could very well take both battlefields, not only that, but be able to also hold them. And this is where Master Yi can really start to struggle in these kinds of matchups and things that you need to be careful with. Because again, you can just kind of flood the board state, and he might not be able to catch up in this case. And again, this is why it can be very difficult as a Master Yi player to try to stay in this game. And so you gotta be so careful with it. And so here's the tricky part though. Trying to go ahead and figure out what to do. Because I mean, again, a Snapvine could be coming in that wouldn't necessarily be all that fast. You're going to be probably anticipating that they maybe have a Master Yi. They might have an Unguard or something like that to go ahead and add more to the might in that case. But still, this is looking really good, all things considered, for Moyen, even though he is still down by 2. And so let's see what they end up doing. And they'll still have 2 runes left over. And I mean, again, a lot of their spells are going to be able to do so. Now, he has already used the Kaisa ability, so he can't go ahead and pay that cost as a recycle in there. So, not necessarily the worst situation, though. So it looks like the attacks are going to officially start. He is going to be going over to the higher attack stage here in this case, and is going to be going for a lot of might in that case. I don't know if he's going to commit with everything just like that. But you got to be very careful because the Master Yi can just go ahead and activate a couple of things, a couple of abilities in hand and really change the might there. And so it looks like he has committed to 5 going out there. I mean, that is a lot of might. 5 plus 12. Yeah, so 17 might going against 5 right now. Just really making sure that he can take this battlefield. And it's almost encouraging him not to use anything to go ahead and try to buff it. Just more harm than good. So it looks like 2 units are going to be taken out in that case. And you go ahead and try to take the other side. Now, of course, again, Master Yi doesn't have any runes that are activated or, that are being used currently. So there's a lot of cards that he can go ahead and use. Do you risk with the Kaisa in that case? And so that's a hard commit to try to decide on as well. And so yeah, it looks like the Kaisa is a little bit off screen there. That's the board size being a little bit small in that case. And so there you go. And so yeah, there you go. You can barely see the Kaisa. But the Snapvine is going to be coming in and doing a smoke screen on the, and that's going to also be countered in that case. And so a good way to get that out of the way. The Kaisa is, of course, going to still be taken out. It didn't count the point for holding. So, gosh, that really is painful, though. Still going to be at 8 at this next turn, or also going to be at 5. Yeah, no problem there. And so, yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see how this is going to go down. And again, we'll look at other gameplay in a minute as well from the other Kaisa player, because I really want to draw a comparison at the difference in not only deck though, but in choice on how they chose to play it. It's really interesting. And it was fun because I got to be, I think I casted both Kaisa matches. There were 3 Kaisa matches in total. Only one would have made, only one would have made the top cut. So you know that's a lot there in that case. And so you do have the Snapvine that is going to be coming in next, and the Master Yi player also is going to be able to go up to 6. And so if you go ahead and play like even the Master Yi on the following turn, you're going to be able to 1, and then it's going to come in ready with a Snapvine that can hold 1 battlefield with a top total power of 8 when it is challenged and defending. And Master Yi, which would have the same might in that case. And so there we go in that case. That'll take out the Cub in that case and go up to 6. Now again, the Master Yi still being able to actually come in and do a lot of devastating things and really change up the thing. And so you got to be so careful. But in this case, it looks like we're going to be really tapping everything out and retreating back. Really smart play right there as well. And then being able to go ahead and have your unit in base, because when he dies, you're able to draw a card. So just a really good ability to try to help get more answers, especially when you're in this late of a game. I mean, it can just switch around. I mean, if the Master Yi ends up coming in at this point of the game, well, then, you know, you're going to go ahead and potentially go up to 7. And if you're unable to take out both battlefields, then you're just in trouble. And so, but it looks like he might not necessarily have the answers enough. He has a lot of cards in hand that might very well be setting him up here to get things going on the following turn. But still, you have to make sure that both aren't taken in this case. And so that -3 is going to be devastating right there. Comes in readied as well. And everything is going to be holding that battlefield. And so it looks like in this case, they might have a Primal Instinct, or whatever that card's called. So it gets -3. Oh, but then the rune. And the rune. Oh, I remember this. That was the double rune that secured the win. Yes, double mind rune. I forgot about that. Let me pull that card up real quick, guys. Because that was what decided it. The fact that he had, oh, there it is. Stun a unit. It doesn't deal combat damage, and it got sent back to base, which means he was able to hold in that case, shutting down that final push. And that was the big upset there with Moyen in securing that win. That was just really well thought out play right there as well. And so, yep, go ahead and go up to 8 in that case. That was the big save right there. The odds of having double Rune Prison, is the card. Rune Prison. I mean, just being able to stun a unit. Now, you have to still deal more damage than the might that they have in order to actually defeat it. And if you stun it and they can't necessarily, attack each other, or their mights are still equalized in that case, there's not necessarily a whole lot that they can do. And it just bounces back to base in that case. And so really interesting to be able to see. Now, at the same time, like with the deck list, you don't necessarily have a whole lot to worry about siding-wise with Master Yi. Again, this battlefield is already kind of in your favor for a lot of it, too. And so things to keep in mind with that. And so we'll see how that ends up going. And so a lot of cards, a lot of games to still be played at the same time. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. And again, we're going to be playing the Kaisa deck probably a little bit later tonight as well. So a lot of really fun stuff to be able to do. And so, yeah, again, though, like we said, though, the Master Yi is going to be one of the better matchups here for Kaisa. But even still, Volibear is still a pretty tough matchup. But again, they're trying to get answers early on as well. So yeah, let's see here. That is a lot of cards. Didn't necessarily have a turn 1 play in that case. So the Kaisa comes out onto the battlefield, not ready. And that's a really tough one. Both those battlefields are really good. One, you don't necessarily want your opponent to be able to ready 2 runes. And so you would be taking Targon's Peak just so your opponent can't have more of an advantage of playing runes later in the game. And again, here's something that's really awesome too that I love about this game. I got to say this. The biggest thing that I love about this game is that you have the battlefields that had a whole different dynamic. The 3 battlefields that you take into a match can make such a difference when it comes to actually playing this game. And even if you play your battlefields in the wrong order, for example, like if you have a better odds of winning going second with this battlefield or whatever it might be, or in this matchup, you need to better prepare for this in like the second game, so I need to play this battlefield, or in this case with game 3, if I'm at game 3, I want to be able to try to have the best chance of activating abilities and spells in my hand. And so I'm going to be saving this potentially for game 3 and play Targon's Peak at that point. Now, Dreaming Tree is another really good battlefield as well, especially for Master Yi. So what Dreaming Tree actually does is the first time you choose a friendly unit with a spell here each turn, draw 1. And so again, you're going to be doing that a lot as Master Yi. And so you can just continually go ahead and do things. Now, of course, here we see a Darius coming out. When you play a second card for turn, including even Darius, if he is the second card, he counts himself, which is really cool to be able to see with that. And so he can then come in and with the cleave as well, that's going to put him up to 10. And that's going to be a total of 6 versus 10. There could still be a couple of answers, and it looks like we are going to be adding 2 to that, and then also an Ungard to add 4 total, so that's going to be 10 to 10 in that case. That will be tapping him out, but that is going to be taking out the Darius, and that will mean that the point is not scored. And of course, also with the Discipline being played, you are going to be able to draw a card as well, replacing itself, which again is going to be a really big answer. And now we see also the runes on the other side of the table in this case. We've seen a lot of times where Master Yi's been really lacking with the runes, but in this case, Moyen is lacking a little bit more, but that shouldn't necessarily be anything to worry about too much. Now we have pit rookies here coming into the battlefield, buffing other units in this case, and a primal to add +7, if I remember correctly. Yeah, just really good card, and it's like, well, there's not necessarily any spells that can deal damage to take out that pit rookie. Also, on the following turn, you're going to be able to a little bit easier anyway. So we'll see how it ends up going. So yeah, this is going to be a big turn for Master Yi in this case. He's got to get some stuff going here. Now, we know that Moyen is, of course, going to win this game. And so the nice part is, and the one thing that I do like that that Jacob did with this software and everything that he coded was that we could check hands. We didn't want to necessarily like abuse that and check hands a lot during the tournament when I was casting it. I was in charge of that button. And so here we go. Can't counter. You can still add might to your units. And that would be, of course, after declared targets. And so if he declared both targets in that case, oh, and then it looks like, yeah, the side deck has prevailed. And so, yeah, the card that Master Yi ended up playing stops all spell and ability damage for the turn. It is Unyielding Spirit. Just a really great card, shuts down Kaisa. And that's going to be the biggest thing as well with this matchup is that, yeah, it is favorable towards Kaisa, but if you can get the correct sideboard cards, you can really make game 2, game 3 very difficult to try to win for Kaisa because, again, if you keep outlasting her and she's not able to necessarily draw cards, then you can take the game. But even still, it's going to be interesting to see how it ends up going. So this is going to be a tough situation, though. Master Yi, it's 2-2 right now. Moyen, it's tied in the game. And a Snapvine is coming down. That's going to be dealing 6. No responses. Tapped out on Moyen's side. So 5 damage to 6 damage. The Snapvine is going to end up living. And then you have 2 left, which means you might be able to play a 2-cost like a Toro or something along those lines to be able to get things moving in this case that can really help you out there. And so you got to just be a little bit careful about how you go about this. But so far, I mean, it's in Master Yi's favor, but you still have a lot to be able to do and utilize here. Snapvine is still one of the best cards in this game, especially just for the cost. It does hurt to have to recycle 2, but still. Now, the Hourglass on the other side of the field, on Master Yi's side over there. The biggest thing about that is that he is going to be, as soon as a unit dies, it automatically spawns back into the base. Now, by spawn, I mean it literally moves back, and the Hourglass is taken out instead. Now, of course, that is still going to be a counter on that. Moyen might be struggling with cards in hand at this point. Now, that's 2 Defies that have been played so far. There's only 1 more Defy to really watch out for. And it looks like, yeah, we're just going to tap out in this case to try to build up our base so that we can potentially move in this next turn. And again, that's going to be going up to 9 in that case. So the Thousand Tail will be able to come in, and that can really devastate the board. That's exactly why he's pulling back the Pit Rookie, because if you go ahead and take out the Pit Rookie first, then it just gets spawned back. Whereas if you go ahead and take out the Snapvine first, the Snapvine comes back and you have 6 might that you're able to utilize on the following turn, which is really good. And right now, Master Yi is doing a great job. Nightingale is doing a great job here on trying to get things moving with this as well. Just a lot of really great utilization here. And another Snapvine in hand. Now, of course, the Thousand Tailed Watcher is still there. And so the 1 card in hand, that really narrows down what your opponent might actually have in hand. But still, it being another Snapvine can be pretty difficult to try to take control of. And so, yeah, I mean, you just go for it at that point. And it looks like, yeah, they'll go for the Shark in this case, dealing 6 damage. And that'll automatically force the Snapvine to go back. Now, the tricky part also, do you go ahead and send both into the battlefield at this point as well? And it's like, yeah, you kind of need the 2 points being 2 to 5. Making it 4 to 5 is a lot easier, even though you might be losing those units. You're still going to be able to have the Thousand Tail come back. And so that's going to be both. And you're going to have 2 more runes ready up. Not that he necessarily has the answers. We know he doesn't have answers spell-wise. But his opponent doesn't necessarily know. And so, yep, the unit is going to be taken out. That's going to be going up to 6. And then at that point, you play the Snapvine and then take out. I think you almost have to. I'm going to try to 2 to 1. Say, do you have it? And that is going to be a 3 damage down on that. Now, the interesting thing about that as well is if they did just end up taking the battlefield in that case, you wouldn't have necessarily, right? I don't think you would have been able to actually play that in that case. And so, but still having the Master Yi now come down onto the battlefield, hiding a card on top of that. That's going to be interesting. And then readying 2 up at the end of the turn. That is one of the easiest battlefields to forget the ability of, because you declare 2 runes that are going to be readied at the end of the turn. But a lot of people forget that. It's really easy to be able to do. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this ends up falling. A lot of choices left to have. And so, again, though, he still has a Thousand-Tailed Watcher in hand. That's going to be the biggest thing as well. But you have to be worried. Now, this hidden card, it could be a pretty strong answer, but at the same time, it could be just a bluff. But if it is the answer, then the game is over and Moyen gets defeated here. And so it's a tough choice, but where you might not have the other cards in hand, you almost got to just risk it for the biscuit in this case and get going on that. And so right there, we see everything is going to get -3 on that. Now, of course, Master Yi's ability is still going to add +2, and that is also scary, though, because the -3 really only minuses 1 when you see the Master Yi ability, but still, that makes a really big difference. And having 3 runes unactivated. So it's going to go up to 5, and then going ahead and taking Master Yi. That is going to be taken out with the Cub coming in. And that is still not going to be enough to go ahead and take the battlefield in that case. And then 2 runes are readied up. That could really seal this down. And yeah, it might not have the answers at this point. Recycling to try to get more answers, but it might be too little, too late. Snapvine's going to be coming down. That's a good top deck, but not good enough in that case. And so that's going to be a trade, though. And again, that's going to be a great job and a job well done here for, this player here. Well played by Moyen in this case. So, I mean, come on. That's just great to see. And so, yeah, great job on Moyen's part, getting that done, being able to win that game. Solid job. And again, he just was playing so well on Friday. Just absolutely well done there. The rest of the games, if you want to see them as well, are available on Riftlabs on YouTube. All the rounds have been uploaded. I was lucky enough to be able to cast rounds 4 through 7. Really a long day, but way fun to be able to do so with Knack. Kaisa is a scary deck, but again, I think Moyen found the sauce here with that deck, where you are playing a lot more smaller units so that you actually have the answers when you're taking out your opponent's units in this case. And of course, yes, the Master Yi is still a kind of more favorable for you as a Kaisa player, but still, it can be a very difficult matchup all the same. And you saw that Nightingale was still able to do an incredibly good job with that gameplay. But guys, that's going to be it for now. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to be playing more gameplay tomorrow. We have a league that I run. I have my league match tomorrow, so a lot of exciting things there. I'm thinking we're either going to be playing Kaisa or Master Yi in this case. So go ahead and tune in for that. That will be live streamed as well. A lot of fun things to look forward to. And if you want to join this league as well, it is free to play, and we play on Tabletop Simulator or on TCG Arena, which is a web-based app in that case. So a lot of great stuff there for you. You get 1 matchup a week, play best of 3s, and then you climb up the leaderboard, and at the end of the season, you go ahead and play in a tournament where you can win a play match. All of that is in the Discord down below. Go ahead and check that out. And until next time, guys, have a good one.